Manny Machado's story after the game was what you just said, that he was just throwing it back to the dugout to get it to a ball boy, like he does routinely.
Jack Harris, LA Times Dodgers beat writer. Okay, should we let you explain what happened? There wasn't even a game yesterday, but there was a lot of drama. Take us through kind of the backstory of the chirping back and forth, Flaherty hitting Tatis, and all of that we knew prior to yesterday. When we left Monday night, how are we feeling?
Yeah, so we'll go back to the 6th inning of Game 2. Jack Flaherty hits Fernando Tatis Jr. with a pitch to lead off the inning. Pretty clearly wasn't intentional, I think, to most people who saw it. Tatis had homered and doubled off him, but it's also a 2-run game and a playoff game. You're probably not trying to hit him. It didn't seem like Tatis thought he was trying to hit him. But Manny Machado did seem to think it was on purpose as some sort of response for Jack Flaherty not being able to get Fernando Tatis out. So as Fernando Tatis goes to first base, there was some chirping between Yerrickson Profar and Will Smith at the plate, but there was also Manny Machado yelling at Jack Flaherty from the on-deck circle. So when Machado comes to the plate, Flaherty strikes him out. He starts yelling back at Machado. In the middle of all this, like Dave Roberts said that he was looking at Machado and shaking his head as if, we would never throw at a guy in that situation. Fast forward to the next inning, Manny Machado and the Padres are warming up in the infield, throwing the ball around like normal. But then at the end of that, Machado turns towards the Dodger dugout in the video that I think a lot of people have seen by now, and kind of like sidearm one hops a throw that hits the netting right in front of where Dave Roberts is sitting. It seems from the video and also talking to people that saw it happen, like it was not a routine throwing the ball back to the ball boy in the dugout kind of thing. Like it was a throw with some intent in a situation and in a game where there were a lot of emotions. It was right after the shouting match with Flaherty. After that, Flaherty starts yelling back at him. But we didn't know about this throw at Dave Roberts until yesterday during the off day when Dave Roberts was asked about it and said, I didn't see it until I saw the video later, but it was unsettling. If it was on purpose, that would be really disrespectful. Obviously, this is a guy who's managed Manny Machado before with the Dodgers back in 2018. And while I think, when you look at the video, the ball, it's not like it zipped in and almost hit somebody in the head, but the Dodgers were really upset about it. Like they didn't think that instance they thought kind of crossed the line for, what you're allowed to do in these kind of situations. And led to quite a dramatic day on team workout day yesterday.
Malicious? Is this a malicious thing? I mean, I know you said it wasn't at anybody's head. It didn't zing past anybody's head. But is this malicious?
I think that's going to be one of the subjective things about this. I think, what it appears, I think to most people who saw it is that, Machado was just trying to send some sort of message or retaliatory something at the Dodger dugout. Like he wanted to get their attention. Now, Miguel Rojas was one of the guys who talked about this on the record. And he said, what happens if you miss with that throw and it does hit somebody? So while it maybe wasn't intended to hurt somebody or do more than just, get the attention of the dugout by throwing it into the netting in front of it, like the Dodgers looked at it as again, something that they kind of crossed the line. Like there's a reason that, MLB is reviewing the footage, even though I would be stunned if anything comes of that. But, it's one of those situations where if you're a player or a team and in a heated game, that's just something that, like the way that some Dodger people explain it, it's like that's not something they would do, right? Like we wouldn't throw a ball at somebody else's dugout or something like that. So maybe not malicious, but definitely something that had some intent behind it. Maybe not to hit somebody, but to try to stir something up in that moment.
Okay, so tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if we have a video, a compilation that somebody put together. Tell me if my predisposed idea of Manny Machado, and I don't know if we can play the video now, of different things that have happened in Manny's career, but this is 2018, routine ground ball, tie ball game, and Manny kicks Jesus Aguilar. And to us, it looked intentional. And so you see that, and you see, this play where, hey, you know what? I don't think Manny did anything wrong here. But up until this point in his career, Manny had a feeling of, or had a look of, oh man, he tried to throw the bat at the pitcher and he threw it at the third baseman, saying it slipped. He's younger, making mistakes. So that looks bad, just like the kicked, like that's clearly intentional. The kick was clearly intentional to me. And the spike at second base, I don't think was intentional. I think it looked intentional. So are we taking those am I taking those predisposed ideas of a guy and looking at this with ill intent and thinking he should get in trouble?
I think that plays into it. And I think the Dodgers' emotional reaction to this comes because of some of the reputation part of Machado and him being a guy that, obviously had kind of a complicated relationship with the team when he was there. And then when he left and with how the Dodger-Padre rivalry has played out. And I'm sure the public reaction, it feeds into that as well. I think like a situation like this shows that there's still some of that kind of side of Manny Machado in him for all the ways that, he has matured as a player and grown into a leader on this Padres team. Like the dugout meeting in that next inning still did happen. But at the same time, there's also stuff like this where, just you throwing the ball at the dugout there is probably one of those things where you kind of look at it, you go, is that really necessary? Like what are you getting out of that? At least that's how people on the Dodgers felt. So I think, like when you put all that together, it's a player who's obviously always going to kind of trigger an extreme response to something like this. It's somebody who has a history with the Dodgers and has been a big part of this rivalry. And again, does something that, I think in the moment that like players and people in the dugout were just so surprised to see him even do something like that, where maybe when you look at the video, it doesn't look so bad. But in that moment, the reaction it caused was instant. Like you saw Jack Flaherty get back up on the dugout rail and start shouting at him. You see Teoscar Hernandez in the videos trying to wave him away after that. So I think all that does play into just kind of how visceral the response to this has been.
Hey, Jack Dellin here. For me, watching some of that, the video clip, I felt like, he was just throwing the ball back in the dugout. Obviously, Dodgers might feel a different type of way. And, based on the scenario of the game, maybe it looks kind of like intentional. But, when you're throwing the ball away, you usually throw it in that area where the ball boy is. And, he just threw it. Flicked. Manny has a good arm. He just flicked his wrist, and I feel like, for me, I feel like it wasn't intentional. But especially him playing with the Dodgers a few years back, I know the rivalry kind of makes things a little more kind of interesting and on the relationship side. But the heat of the moment, I feel like I just feel like he shouldn't get suspended for it. But that's just my take. I want the best players playing out there. Obviously, I feel like it wasn't intentional, but you were there, so you probably have more gauge than I do. But that's just my perspective.
Yeah, and I think as far as the punishment point goes, like again, I don't think anyone's really expecting anything to come out of this. Even in the moment, like the third base umpire Trip Gibson saw the throw happen, did go up to Machado right away. And, he wasn't ejected from the game. Machado put his arm around him. They had a brief chat about it. That was one thing Dave Roberts was also upset about when he was asked if Machado should have been ejected, saying, I wouldn't like to see the umpire and the guy with their arms around each other. But, even in the moment for somebody who saw it, it didn't rise to that level of anybody ejecting him from the game or trying to take him off the field or something like that. So, and that's where, the gray area in this is. Manny Machado's story after the game was what you just said, that he was just throwing it back to the dugout to get it to a ball boy, like he does routinely. But, that is not the way it was interpreted from people in the Dodger dugout for sure.
Listen, everybody, we got a major problem here. Half of our viewers are not subscribed. Let's go. All you got to do is click a button. Check it out. Hit that button. the problem will be gone. Let's go.
Hey FT fam, it's Alana Rizzo. I can't stop talking about Vuori. Vuori is perfect if you are sick and tired of traditional old workout gear. I wear Vuori in all settings, not just in the gym, because honestly, it's comfier than whatever you're currently wearing. No joke. I'm wearing Vuori daily leggings right now. They're high-waisted with the drawstring and cuffed ankles. They look good and they feel great. You're going to love them. Vuori is an investment in your happiness. For our listeners, they are offering 20% off your first purchase. Get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at vuori.com/foul. That's VUORI.com/foul. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Go to vuori.com/foul and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing.
We were just talking before you came on about the Royals-Yankees series and the kind of idea of bulletin board material with the way that game played out yesterday. So, okay, Dodgers-Padres, they're going to play another game tonight in San Diego. Mookie is struggling. Freddie Freeman is a little hurt. They're going down to the Padres ballpark. How do you see the drama from those first two games playing out as we go forward? Is there still going to be tension on the field?
You know, I think you're going to see a lot of emotion on the field. Even coming into this series, one of the things the Dodgers talked about was they wanted to match the Padres' intensity level. That every time they play the Padres, they feel like, you know, San Diego treats it like a playoff game or a World Series game, and that in this environment, given that the Padres eliminated them 2 years ago, that they needed to raise their energy level and their emotion level to what the Padres do. And after, you know, what's happened the last 2 days, like all that's only going to become more amplified. Obviously, there's the Dodgers side of it, but the Padres are also coming off a game where fans were throwing stuff at them on the field, and there was a delay, and you had the shouting matches. So I think both sides are going to be pretty emotionally charged. I think the crowd is going to be really interesting to see, you know, already in what's probably one of the most raucous environments in baseball the last couple of years, just how they internalize all of this. Already the Padres were sending out emails this week asking their fans, don't throw things on the field and stuff like that. So I think there's going to definitely be some edge in the game. And while I'd be surprised if anybody, you know, is intentionally throwing at players, or if there's some sort of manufactured, you know, drama or altercation or something like that. If there's a situation in the game where somebody gets hit accidentally, or there's something controversial that happens, like I wouldn't be surprised if things kind of spiral more quickly, just given how on edge I think both these teams are going to be going into tonight.
Players seem to control themselves during the playoffs. I know we just talked a whole section about what maybe wasn't the best control, but I think they control themselves in the playoffs, and I think the umpires do a really good job of that too. But we're talking about emotions. Now let's talk about the ankle that everybody's thinking about. Is there any new news? Is there any new news of why they pulled Freddie out of the game? Is it just for rest? You know, another day? Did he bounce back like they hoped he would for after that day or 3 innings of rest plus the day off?
Yeah, so Freddie left the game the other night because on that line drive he hit that Tatis made the running catch on, he kind of rolled over on it in the batter's box. That's something that he said even after game one. You know, the only time the ankle really hurt it on that night was after he got a breaking ball, and just the way he finished his swing, it kind of hurt the outside of that right ankle. So apparently it was a similar situation in game two. This one was bad enough to where, you know, he couldn't keep going in the game. The way the Dodgers have approached this with him is really on a day-to-day basis. So they gave him most of yesterday off. He wasn't out on the field participating in the team workout. He was getting treatment. Dave Roberts described it as just a mental break for him too, after, you know, Freddie Freeman was at the ballpark for like 12 to 13 hours each of those first two games of the series because he had to get there so early to get his ankle worked on. And then they'll see how he comes in today, and they'll see how he goes through his pregame progression and routine and taking grounders and getting swings off in the cage. I think, you know, the fact that he's been able to do that twice already this series and then end up playing is probably a good sign that he's going to be in the starting lineup tonight if the ankle has improved from the other night. But Dave Roberts also acknowledged that, you know, if he does play tonight, maybe they have to sit him down tomorrow. Like they're trying to figure out how to best manage this, where they know that the more he plays, the more the pain is going to bother him, the tougher it's going to be on his ankle. So I think right now what they're trying to figure out is what's the right balance of playing and rest? How is the ankle responding from a day off? Let's try to get him into the game tonight, and then we can reevaluate again going into Game 4.
Do you believe that, or is that posturing? Is that a little Dave Roberts playoff posturing? Is there any way that Freddie Freeman comes out of that game when it was if it's a 1-1 game and not a 3-1 game when he comes out of it? Is there any way that he misses any of these next 2 games?
It was amazing that he even played in Game 1. And I think is kind of the reflection of, most people around the Dodgers did not think he was going to play even up to a few hours before the game. But then he comes out on the field very locked in and determined to get through his pregame routine to show the team that he was able to play. And then he gets in the lineup and he gets a couple hits. I think it's something that the actual pain level of the ankle can kind of vary a lot, just depending on how much he's been doing on it. I think part of what Game 2 is the fact he had played the night before. So I do think it's again, unless he's having setbacks with it, which he was told by doctors that he can't make it worse by trying to play through it. I think you're going to keep seeing him trying to get in the starting lineup, and I, if I had to take a guess right now, I think unless the ankle's gotten worse from the other night, he'll probably be in the starting lineup again tonight. The question is, the more he plays, can he continue to manage it? Can he play tonight and tomorrow? But the one thing he's made clear and has been kind of evident in his work is that he's trying everything he can do to get on the field. This is a guy who, even in the regular season, has disdain for taking off days. And the Dodgers' hope is that, every time they can get him a little bit of rest, it kind of helps him just recharge in some ways or alleviate some of the pain, and then to where he can get back on the field and play.
Who needs more treatment, Freddie's ankle or Mookie's hands and arms from the 300 to 400 swings that he took the other day? And is that a physical manifestation of his frustration of not getting hits?
Yeah, I mean, he did this last week when the Padres were in town after a game where he popped up 4 times to all 4 infielders. He went in the cage and was in there for hours, taking hundreds of swings. He said he did the same thing this week. I think the interesting thing about this postseason so far for Mookie is like the first game, he got on base 3 times with 3 walks. In Game 2, he did hit a ball that went over the fence. It's just that Jurickson Profar reached into the crowd and brought it back. So it's not like past postseasons where he's had a ton of really bad at-bats and he hasn't come through in key situations, but it's the weight of those past playoffs that Dave Roberts thinks is weighing on him, that Mookie Betts acknowledged, he's aware of, and he knows how people are talking about. He hasn't had a hit in the postseason in 2 years and is 0 for his last 22 or whatever it is. And yeah, his process is when the results are bad, when I'm struggling to find confidence, I'm going to work through it. I'm going to go in the cage and take hundreds of swings. It was the same thing earlier this year when he was playing shortstop and making errors there and spending hours on the field pregame taking grounders. Like, this is the way that he tries to battle through things. And over large periods of time, he usually does it well. The question is, in what could be the defining week of your season and potentially the last week of your season if you don't play well, can he get something to click in the cage? I think it'd really be helpful for him if he just got a hit to kind of take off some of the mental pressure in whatever form. But yeah, right now he's back in a spot where he's clearly frustrated. He's clearly trying to work through it. And given the fact that Freddie Freeman's not 100% and that, the Padres, I think, are going to pitch Shohei Ohtani carefully, he's a really important piece to how the rest of the series goes.
Yeah, that was my last question for you before we let you go, was just going to be, if Mookie isn't hitting and Freddie isn't playing, how do you like the Dodgers' chances going down to San Diego? Can Shohei do it himself?
Yeah, not as great of chances when those two things are happening. I think, part of what matters with Shohei's performance is the way the bottom of the lineup does. That was one of the quiet keys to Game 1, the fact that guys like Gavin Lux had a big night, and Tommy Edman had a bunt single. Miguel Rojas got on base, once or twice, and they put the Padres in situations where they couldn't walk Shohei Ohtani, where there were 2 guys on base when he came up and hit the 3-run homer. And that didn't happen as much, the other night against Darvish. I think Darvish is also a tougher matchup for Ohtani. And I'll be curious to see how he responds to these next 2 nights. He talked a lot about the excitement he had coming into the postseason, not being nervous about it. But suddenly when you're on the road and that, if you lose a game, your season's going to be on the brink, I think it adds a different kind of pressure. Now, he can't carry him alone. I think getting a good start out of Walker Buehler tonight is going to be really important for the Dodgers, because if they fall behind again, that'll make it not just this postseason, but you go back the last couple of years, they are always playing from behind in October. And while they came back in game 1, there's just a mental strain that goes with that, especially when you do have some hitters who are struggling. So I think getting a good start out of Walker Buehler will be big. I think how they handle their emotions in a hostile environment will be interesting. My feeling is that these teams probably split these games. I think there's also one of these 2 nights the Dodgers can burn all of their good relievers like they did in game 1. And if you get a couple big hits from Ohtani mixed in there, I wouldn't be surprised if we're back in LA later this week for game 5.
I really liked what you said earlier about the Dodgers trying to get their emotions on the same level as the Padres. I'm enjoying this series. I'm enjoying every time we see the Dodgers kind of bring their incredible star-studded, so much talent lineup to face a team that's like, we're just feeling hot. And I'm excited to see how it plays out. Thanks so much for being with us, Jack. And read Jack Harris at LA Times. Keep up with all the drama in the Dodgers-Padres series.
Hey everybody, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.